And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm just going to continue on with the previous segment, which is just talking about and ranking every single NBA team based off of their young core and their young talent. And we left off at the Detroit Pistons at number 10. So we're going to move on with the list and go to number 11, which is the Portland Trailblazers. And see, the Portland Trailblazers, the only real hype that they had around them was when they went ahead and drafted, I believe it was Scoot. Like, for some reason, a lot of people felt like Scoot Henderson was going to be the best player going into this draft. And really, it was mainly Wembanyama haters and Wembanyama doubters saying that he was going to be the best player in the draft class, But obviously he wasn't. But despite that, he is still a very solid player. Now, the team has a lot of young talent and a lot of young depth on the roster due to their recent trade with the Bucks and sending Damian Lillard over there. And really, it's just not while they are a young team, they just don't really seem to win all that much. But obviously, in a league against veterans, I don't really expect these young guys to win. I mean, no, there's only like 3 or 4 players that are around 24, 25 years old in their young core. So, like, they have Scoot Henderson, who's 20 years old. They have Donovan Clingan, who's also 20 years old. And then they have Shaedon Sharpe, who's 21. Ryan Rupert, who's 20. Let me just keep looking at the roster. Chris Murray, 24. Dalen Banton, 24. And the oldest one, Aferny Simmons, 25. And Aferny Simmons is actually a very competent player. Like, he is a baller. A lot of people wanted him to... A lot of Portland fans, they really hope that he is going to be, like, the next guard to replace Damian Lillard. And Aferny Simmons, over the last season, he wasn't that bad. Like, but then again, you can't really be being one of the bottom feeding teams and me saying you're not that bad is like, it's being generous, right? Like, you guys understand that. And it's really, I'm just looking at the rest of the roster, seeing if they have anybody else that's younger. And really, it's just, the way I see it, it's going to be a matter of time for Aferny Simmons to be able to take that next step. Because as of the last 2 seasons, he's averaged 21 and 22 points per game. And while he doesn't really shoot that efficiently from the field, he does shoot really efficiently from 3, actually. But from the field overall, he doesn't shoot that efficiently. But he is a competent player, and he could be the face of this team and the next face of Portland and the next, I mean, I wouldn't want to say the next Damian Lillard, but maybe, because as much of a legend as Damian Lillard is in Portland, he hasn't done anything for them. I'm sorry, but it's like he has no MVPs. He has barely any first team selections. He has barely any all-star selections. He has barely any success in the postseason. He only has 1 Western Conference Finals appearance. And sure, you can make the argument that it was because the Golden State Warriors were stacked, but you can also make the argument that Damian Lillard didn't play nearly as well in the postseason as you might have expected him to. A lot of people consider Dame as a postseason demigod and a postseason clutch king after that ridiculous half-court shot against OKC all the way back in 2019. And like, a lot of people think he is such a clutch point guard, but the reality is that he's had several series and he's had several playoff series where he just underperforms and the team loses because of him. So just throwing that out there for just food for thought for all of you guys. And enough of my rambling. Let's continue with this list and go on to the Toronto Raptors. And The Toronto Raptors, obviously, their best player in the young core is Scotty Barnes. I am a huge fan of Scotty Barnes. I had him on my fantasy team last year. Arguably the biggest steal in the entire fantasy draft that we did. And nobody thought he was going to be good. I think I had him because I was able to pick LeBron and then I was able to pick Anthony Davis right out with the picks. I believe I had Scotty Barnes maybe as my 7th pick, which is insane. Not even maybe not my 7th pick now that I think about it. I think I had him as maybe my 5th pick, something like that. But regardless, having that as the 5th pick is a crazy steal. Or maybe it's a little bit later. I don't remember, but I remember that. I remember his stats. I remember his fantasy stats. Those were phenomenal. And he's 23 years old. He's obviously going to be the face of this team. Last season, before he got hurt, he led the Raptors in every single statistical category that you could possibly think of. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. I don't know about turnovers, but, probably. And the rest of the team as well is really competent. They have R.J. Barrett, who's playing at home. Emmanuel Quickley, 25 years old. Jacoby Walter. Jamal Sheed. Ochai Abaji, excuse me if I botched that last name, Grady Dick, and forgive my profanity, that's his last name, and Jonathan Mugbo. Now, all of these guys, the only one that's relatively in the older side is Quickley. Quickley is the oldest member in the entire young core at the age of 25. So these guys, and the fact that Scotty Barnes is only 23 years old and he's already this good at everything on the basketball court is astonishing in my opinion. Next team is the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Chicago Bulls, I have a feeling that they might move up in this ranking because I have a feeling that they're going to trade away Zach LaVine and they're going to try to gain some kind of either draft capital or they're going to try to get a really solid player in return, or maybe even I think they're going to rebuild. Apologize for that. They're going to send him and then they're going to rebuild and that's going to give them even more depth. So, as of right now, their young core is looking like Matas Buzelis, who's 20 years old, Josh Giddey, 22 years old, Kobe White, who's 24, Jalen Smith, who's also 24, just to name a few of those guys. And, I mean, the Bulls have they've been stuck in mediocrity for a very, very long time. And I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be the year where they're going to pull themselves out of mediocrity. And I'm also not entirely sure if they're going to actually make a deal to get rid of Zach LaVine, seeing as the DeMar DeRozan experiment did not work. But that still remains to be seen. And next team on this list is, hold on, let me just go ahead and pull up that slide, is the Washington Wizards. Excuse me. Now, the Wizards, aside from Detroit, in my opinion, this Washington Wizards team is the worst NBA team ever. I think they're the worst NBA team. Right now, the worst. And the big reason why they're the worst, Jordan Poole. I cannot stand his game. Everybody thought that Jordan Poole was going to average 30 on this Washington Wizards team. He hasn't averaged 20. Everybody thought he was going to be the face of the team. Nobody wants to even see his face on this team. He is terrible. No, let me scratch that. He is questionable, and his shot selection is terrible. That's what it is. His shot selection is terrible. And because of that bad shot selection, it hurts the team more than it does help the team. He doesn't even, in huddles and in timeouts, he doesn't even pay attention to the plays. He has flashes of brilliance, yes, but he also has huge, and it's overshadowed a lot by his flashes of ignorance. His flashes of greatness is overshadowed by his flashness of ignorance. Just imagine that play on words. It's really, really, it's really bad, in my opinion. And a little bit. Let me stop rambling about Jordan Poole and just how bad he is, or how bad I feel he is. Because Jordan Poole, while he isn't very, how should I say, reliable, I guess, the rest of the young lineup that they have could also be really nice. I mean, they do have Corey Crispert, Sadiq Bey, Johnny Davis, Marvin Bagley. They recently got the second overall pick in Alexander Sarr. And I mean, while Alexander Sarr played horribly in the summer league, we still have to wait and see just how good he actually can be because we never know. NBA and summer league are two different leagues. And finally, we are getting to the final team on this list, and that is we're getting to the 15th team, which is the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the reason why I said final there was because I didn't really expect to be able to get through all of them in this time. So I'm, saving the rest of that list for, I'm saving the rest of that list for tomorrow and for later segments. So just so you guys know. But aside from that, the Atlanta Hawks, they got the number one pick in the draft. They were able to get Zach Resacher, 19 years old, Jalen Johnson, he's 22, and Dyson Daniels is 21. Trae Young isn't really considered young anymore, but he still is, on the relatively younger side of the league as opposed to being one of the vets and the older players. Even though, you might want to consider him a vet now, but he's not old, old, if you guys know what I'm saying. But aside from that, that is all that I have for this fourth segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the fifth segment where I talk about the Lakers and some trade rumors that are going around with the Lakers. And actually, no, not trade rumors, some Lakers trade targets that they should be interested in acquiring. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.